tutorial, we will be taking a look at how to create or nest a void family inside of an element family. In our last tutorial, we took a look at how to nest detail families inside of our void family, and we're going to be kind of doing the same thing. Now, when you think about actually building something in terms of creating an opening for something, usually there's an element in there, and in this case we're going to be taking a look at a shelf. So I already pre-developed a shelf. I can do another tutorial on this if you guys want. It's very basic though. I only wanted to create this as just to get the idea across. So basically we're trying to think in full BIM here, which is we place the shelf, we want it to pass through the tolerances that we want for the opening, and we want it to pass through any detailing that comes across as well. So just to kind of go through what I did for this shelf so you can see my methodology here. Basically I'm going to go into the type properties here for the shelf. I created two shelves. One is a 1.5 or 1 by 1.5 foot shelf. One is a 2 by 3 foot shelf. Just as a basic, usually you don't really, whatever size your shelf would be what you would put. I added, so we'll go by the dimensions first. I created a bunch of reference planes, and then I used equality constraints, and I added these primary dimensions, so shelf height, depth, and length. And I'm just going to go into reference level here so you can kind of follow along what I did. So obviously shelf length, shelf height, shelf depth is from the front of the surface down. And then I added a shelf thickness, so I added 1/8 thickness, and then I created a void, so basically you get that shell kind of look of the shelf. And then I created the almost like a trim around the outside, so I created these ones right here, trim thickness, so I made it 1 inch around all sides based on the reference planes of the shelf length and height. And then I just did a quick element for that, just an extrusion. And then I created a tolerance. So the tolerance is going to be what we're going to be using for our void. So I just created a dimension, I made it an instance, and then I also created a trim thickness. Sorry, that's the outside. Then I created 3 dummy lengths for our void, and then I basically did an easy calculation that we can transfer to our void. I took the shelf depth, for instance, so the tolerance depth, took the depth plus the tolerance times 2. It's pretty simple. So basically what you're saying is you're adding a 1/2 inch on both sides. And I did the same thing for the length and the height. I also added a material, so I added a material properties for the 2 shelf elements I created, which was just basic steel, and then I also created 2 visibility graphics here. So the first one I made was for the shelf, which is so that way, for instance, if you just wanted to see the opening that you're creating, you could just click this and it'll turn these 2 elements off. And then I also created a detailing visibility one. So when we actually put the void in, we're going to give this family the ability to control the visibility of the detailing inside the void family. It's kind of like BIMception, but basically all you're doing is you're giving it the ability to turn on and off the element within the void. So that's kind of the basics, and the next step we're going to do here is we're just going to add the void now. So I have that open here. I'm just going to load that in. I'll save it. I'm just going to load this into the shelf with void. So I've already saved and named this. And then we're going to go to create, and we're going to go to component, and we're just going to place our surface opening on the surface. Again, make sure that you're attaching it to this surface, nothing else. We're going to do what we did with the detailing. We're going to align the center of this with this and lock it. Same thing. And then we're going to use associative parameters. Again, we're going to select our void. We're going to go to the length. We're going to go to tolerance length. We're going to do that for each one. then the one last thing we need to do is we need to attach that visibility parameter that we added, detailing visibility. And then we're just going to take a quick look at this in 3D so you can see our void there. And then we're going to make sure that we have two items selected here. We're going to have the shared and the cut voids when loaded. If you don't select these, you will get errors, so make sure that you have these selected. So then we're going to do a little flex here just to make sure we're not going to get any errors. So we're just going to go to our type properties and just change the type. Hit apply. There you go. Looks like it works. Apply. Okay, so everything looks like it works. So we're going to load this into the project, level 2. And then we're going to just override existing values. I've been testing this already, so we're just going to reload that in. Go to architecture, go to component, because this is a generic model. We're going to place on face, and we're just going to select the plywood here. So the first thing you're going to notice is it already kind of pre-cut the opening for the actual shelf, and that's because that's the void that I used to make this shelf element. This won't cause any issues when you actually cut, because you can still see our void here, so it hasn't actually cut anything yet. So the next thing we're going to do is what we did before, which was we're going to go to modify, we're going to select cut, we're going to click the plywood, and then click our shelf, and there you go. There's your tolerance opening around the outside. You're going to have to select multiple items for this, so for instance like this stud, you would have to select this stud and then the shelf, and it'll cut the stud as well. So it'll cut any element for the most part, and anything that's behind it as well, it will actually cut that as well. So that's kind of the basics of it. So we're just going to go into our elevation real quick, and we're going to, looks like it's already hidden. Oh, one thing I forgot to do is you have to actually add this to the assembly. So we're just going to go to here, we're going to go add, then add this in. Again, remembering that you have to actually do this before, you have to do all the cutting before you can actually add the element in. Just a reminder on that. And we're just going to actually test the visibility of this shelf here. So we're just going to unclick that. So the shelf's gone. That's good. That's what we're looking for. Just going to tab that again. Turn this back on. Beautiful. That's exactly what we're looking for. So now there's the shelf. I'm going to hit tab, and we're just going to go here. The visibility. It looks like we forgot to do something here. Detailing visibility. Oh yeah, see, we forgot to attach this. Because we attached it to the wrong one. We attach it to this parameter here, which is actually not correct. So we're going to select none here. And then we're going to go to this one here. We're going to go to detailing visibility. That should have worked. Weird that it's not showing up. That might take a little bit of fiddling around to get it to work, but for the most part, that's the basics of it. If you have any questions or want to see me do any more of these tutorials, leave a like and a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.